Hi guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We are here for another episode of our series of interviews and podcasts, whatever you call it, with interesting people from DeFi crypto world. And today I'm pretty happy to introduce you our next amazing guest. So guys, please welcome. We have an interview with Dr. Mendoza Jiménez. Just to remind you real quick, Dr. Miller is co-founder at Vifin Labs and co-founder of Grundo project. So I've heard so much about you, a lot of things, from just being from science world to having this transition to crypto. So yeah, really excited to hear more about you, talking about your background, and pretty happy to see you, man.
Thank you, Ivan. So I'm also happy to be here and to share a little bit of my experience. So I'm Miller Mendoza. I'm originally from Colombia, but I'm based in Switzerland right now. I studied physics by background, so then I was very passionate about it, about the natural laws, let's say. I did the bachelor, master's, PhD on that. And at some point I realized that, let's say science can be very interesting, very beautiful, right? But it sometimes detached from reality. Right. So sometimes there are indirect impact in society, but I was looking for something with much more direct impact. So that's why I decided to maybe leave academia. I mean, not because I didn't like it, but more because my personal drive basically lead me there. And then I found in entrepreneurship basically like a path, right, where you can put your ideas, build products, and actually help people directly. And most of all, really listen to current problems, urgent problems. And this is how basically my first journey started with Grundo, where let's say this started during the COVID times, where we were just hanging around with some friends, inviting people to our calls. And then we found out that there were some problems on food security at that time, because many countries were afraid that their imports of food were stopped, because every country was getting very, very attached to their food security. So they started to take care more about their agricultural land and then see what is planted where, what the farmers are doing. And when you have a huge country, it's really hard to have the logistics and the databases for it. So therefore, we came up with some solutions using satellite data, AI, to help governments first, and then later expand it to other stakeholders. But deep in my mind, it was always DeFi, right? Because being from Colombia, I also know the struggle to have an infrastructure for investment, or to have financial security as well for any individual. And that is where I saw on DeFi a big opportunity, because wherever there is internet, there is a financial infrastructure. And this basically led me to build later, after this experience with Grundo, with Vifin Labs and pushing forward DeFi.
Just because nowadays you don't often see this kind of transition. So I'm pretty curious, what key lessons from your research background have stayed with you in your startup journey?
Yeah, I mean, let's say when you do research, you learn first of all to be resilient. So let's say you get a problem, so you don't give up the next day, right? You need to dig into it, find how you can solve the problem, and then once you collect all the information on how to solve the problem, then you can decide whether it is solvable or not with the current tools. That's very important, and I think this one was inherited from science, from research. Because on their way, when I was already working with the companies, I met many people that they were actually very good, but they lacked this type of resilience, and they just gave up on solving a real problem. And that's what makes us very strong at Grundo, for instance, because we came up with solutions. We said, okay, no, we can really go deep into the problem, and we promise you we will find a solution for you. And then we kind of did always, right? You need to, and then this also forces you to innovate in order to create that solution. I think this is the most important things that I inherited from research. And also perhaps the deep thinking and the fast quantitative, thinking process. So always not, let's say, don't attach emotionally to things. Let's say if a product doesn't work, so then you need to, change course, or just really collect the data that is needed. So just not maybe collect random data and then take a decision out of unproven or unbased some assumptions, let's say. So try to really detect the assumptions that are relevant, put them all together, and then when it comes to a decision, whether it is negative, so don't get emotionally attached. And I think this is two of the things that I inherited from science.
Let's talk about Grundo in depth now. So Explain, like, we're five. What problem is it solving, and why is space and environmental data is so urgent right now?
Yeah, so let's put it like this. So right now, I mean, the world is shifting into something that is more like every country is trying to become very protective, right, among their food security when it comes to it.
Okay.
Also like military and so on, but let's focus on the food security. So for that, countries, for instance, some of them, they are providing subsidies to farmers so that the farmers, because farmers only get the money when they get the harvest, right, which can take like a while, like months for it. So they don't have an income in between. So usually governments, they provide subsidies to them. So meaning that farmers at the beginning of the year, they need to declare which type of crops they are going to plant, and so that the government knows, verify, and then pay the subsidies. Now, this verification process, if you have a huge country and you have like pieces of land that are very inaccessible, or like there are no roads or anything, it becomes very challenging when you want to, let's say, send people or something. And then there is where, let's say, having satellite data where you can take a photo of a full country, apply AI to make a crop distribution of the entire land, and tell the government, look, there is here like wheat and here corn, etc. This will already help them to say, okay, yeah, this farmer declared corn, and indeed there is corn, so then there is the verification is successful. And then wherever there is not where the verification fail, let's say the farmer declared that is wheat, and then suddenly it's, I don't know, rice, so then they can actually send someone to double check. Right, but then it's become already cheaper, and then it can really cut like millions of dollars in government money. So I think like this is one of the most successful use cases for Grundo so far.
And what are your ideal users? Say governments, farmers, NGOs, or just enterprises?
Let's say, I mean, by now we have been very lucky with governments, but we always try to go away from governments because governments are very slow in the decision making, and it's also not very scalable, right? So when you come to scalability, probably you want to focus more on like enterprises or farmers directly. But we also tried farmers, and then we decided not to pursue that path, because talking to farmers when it comes to technology can be very challenging. So you need kind of proxies like associations or so on, because also you have to imagine that a farmer has decades and decades of knowledge when it comes to farming. So now you come here saying, oh, now I will teach you how to to have a better crop. So then they will tell you, okay, but who you are, right? Why should I believe you? So that's why we kind of farmers, we try, but we say, okay, no, we need more like a proxy to talk to farmers. NGOs we have actually right now, but then, NGOs are always struggling for funding. So it's a very a slow process to, let's say, to scale financially the company. So then in the end, it's like we have governments and then enterprises, which are like our ideal users in this case.
Yeah, and overall, like, what's been your biggest technical or adoption challenge building in this intersection of sustainability and space tech?
The biggest technically challenge, I would say, well, clouds, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
Because there are regions in the world where there are too many clouds, and then it's sometimes very impossible to make like assessments. But also, I think quality of data. Quality of data is one of the, especially when it comes to AI. Sometimes when you talk to users or to governments, for instance, I mean, they give you some data that they have. Data is sometimes of very bad quality, and then you need to really go through the process of identifying what is good, what is bad, and sometimes it's not enough, and then you have to find a solution that is, I mean, like, you can, let's say you have never a perfect solution. You always have to have the best out of the data you have, right? So I think like with better data, much more high quality data will be like a much better solutions for like everyone.
Okay, so let's switch to, something different now. So what are other projects or areas of, DeFi you're working on right now?
Yeah, so right now, I have I really like DeFi, so I'm mostly working on that. And on DeFi, I have this core idea to bring financial inclusion. So meaning that anyone should have, like, let's say, an investment vehicle, which, for instance, you can imagine an index, right? Like the Standard & Poor's 500, which collects like the top 500 companies by market capitalization.
Yeah,
so here is a little bit different, because let's say if you take a person, the average Joe, let's say in Colombia or you name it, Venezuela, Bolivia, etc. They usually they don't have access to those, but they do have access to internet. So that's why. So right now through Vifin Labs, so we are creating indexes similar to the SP500, but in a way that they are indexed. They can let's say set the asset allocations, but we don't want to be also asset managers because we don't want to be that, and also because this will let's say make more difficult the barrier of like who is the asset managers and etc. and so on. But also we want to give the opportunity to anyone to be an asset manager. So then it's like, so it's a platform where like anyone can be an asset manager and anyone can invest in the product, which is the final index asset allocation of the platform. But then there is like a smart contract that ranks the performance of all the asset managers, and in that way somehow you kind of like ensure that only the best goes and decide the asset allocation of the index, and everyone that uses the index, then we charge a fees from them, and then we pay the managers that are like helping shaping the index asset allocation as a reward, right? So we are creating like a closed economy, a round economy where anyone can participate as a manager or like building their portfolio and the asset manager on the index, and on the other hand, people benefit of having like an index where they can invest wherever there is internet. They can in principle have like, let's say, a percentage of their savings on that, and in that way they can benefit, and then it's like a win-win situation for both.
So I think you would agree that DeFi is still underbuilt right now, or is it solving like the wrong problems right now?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think DeFi, I mean, we have built a lot in DeFi. I mean, if you think about the lending protocols, like smart asset allocations, I mean, these are all already out there. But the thing is, like right now, the biggest problem is that people is building for builders, or builders are building for builders, and then also or for crypto native, right? So it's like if I go to a crypto conference, usually I see protocols which are selling their composability of their product to other builders, but nobody thinks about the average Joe out there, which will probably benefit from having a DeFi application. So I think in that way we are building a little bit on the wrong direction. So we do need more infrastructure, but we still need apps for the retail user, for the user of the street, like the people that is walking outside. And this is something that in DeFi we have ignored so far. That's why we also at DeFi we are trying to address. We are trying to gather all these use cases that DeFi have produced, all these infrastructure protocols, integrate them all together, and creating an app that can be used by anyone, even if they don't have like a crypto expertise. So that's what I think is like a bit of the trade-off.
So I was thinking that it is a pretty long conversation around DeFi mass adoption in crypto world. So where do you think there's the biggest mismatch today between DeFi theory and DeFi execution? Why these conversations around DeFi mass adoption is still revolving like years from just the inception of DeFi?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, historically, DeFi was started by builders, right? By people with technical background. But I think, and then it creates an ideal, right? The ideal is like, to have this internet economy around. But on the other hand, there is still the need to study actually what people need. Like some people that go outside and actually ask people, okay, what do you need right now when it comes to financial infrastructure? Yeah. And probably they will give you a slightly different answer. And that's the thing that is missing, right? So this is like ideal that DeFi as a theory is beautiful, right? But when it comes to execution, it's just doing something which is again not builder for builders or builder for crypto native, but it's lacking at least on asking people outside really what are their needs and then building for those people. This is where I think there is the biggest difference.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll have countless times talking about this DeFi problem, and it will not solve anything until really just make it here and do something. So yeah, let's switch to another topic right now. So it's actually maybe a more important topic right now because raising funds is pivotal, is key thing in this area, and the ability to raise that is, just a top priority maybe here. And I've made some research, and I've seen that you've raised over $3 million in grants. Is that correct? So
yes, that's
what's the key to communicating scientific innovation in a way that wins trust and funding? So how this works for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a little bit also some soft skills, let's say, and also like some kind of like, let's say, research in who is the decision making. Because, I mean, after all, we are all humans, right?
Yes.
So in the end, a decision is also taken by let's say, what the other human is excited about. So in the end, when you write a grant, so if you have access to the people that would actually evaluate those grants, you can actually write it in a way that can, let's say, catch their interest, right? Because then this makes it more attractive to them to incline and then vote in your favor, right? So this is one of the things that is usually like forgotten, but it's very important. And then the second thing I would say is also to really be clear of how targeting a problem that actually exists. So, and how do you show that the problem actually exists is by including references, citing relevant publications from relevant journals, let's say, where they really say, oh yeah, this is a big problem. This is a problem that will open up many more opportunities. And then we are looking for a solution of it. And then you provide that solution or like propose a solution for it. And I think the third one is, especially when it comes through grants given by government, or like by the government or like institutions related to it, is that you should always communicate the message in a way where you state clearly what is the benefit for society, because then governments can actually justify to the taxpayers that how the money is being spent. And this is very important. So when you, I think, collect these three key factors in your grant, so you increase a lot the factors of getting accepted and then being granted.
Yeah, and let's not forget that you're also a co-founder and you are doing some advising?
Yeah.
Yes. So what role do first principles play in your daily decision making as a founder, co-founder, and advisor as well?
Okay. So this one, I think it's like, this I actually learned from science, no? And it's like the principle of minimum action, right? It's called like other people call it the cosmic laziness, to say it this way, right? So it's basically to always choose the path of minimum friction. So in a way that you should always find the simplest solution without, let's say, compromising the accuracy, the quality, etc. So it's actually the art of collecting the right minimum amount of data and the solution needed to solve a problem. And I think this is like the key thing. So sometimes people come to me with overcomplicated solutions for a problem, and then we sit down for a while and then we actually simplify their solution, because many of those things that they are using are not actually needed, right? So it's really like this type of selection process. Also because when you have a very slight solution, it's much easier to scale up, to build on top of it, and so on and so forth.
So simplicity is the key.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, totally agree. And Miller, what emerging technology are you personally most excited about and why?
I think it's this one is quite obvious. I think it's like crypto and AI. So I feel like AI mostly because I believe AI in the end of the day will make our life easier. Will also help us to solve complex problems that we haven't solved right now. I mean, including in science, like let's say, folding of molecules for medicines, etc. I think all these problems will be solved by AI sooner than later. And crypto, because I do believe it's like, it's bringing this financial layer over the internet, which is, I still think is missing in a way. So it's like, I think there is a lack still on reaching out to the mass adoption, but once it's there, I think it will really complement pretty good the internet as we know it right now.
Okay, so is there a thing that scares you the most about the way that the world is evolving today in terms of technology, and what gives you hope?
This question actually I debate a lot with friends, and the thing is like, I'm not, and I always say the same, I'm not really afraid of technology, because I think like if you see from the history of the humans, right? So technology technology always, every time it's disrupting something and changing something, people adapt around, right? So people will need to learn new skills, that's for sure, right? So many jobs will change, some will be lost, but new will emerge. And then people just needs to adapt, needs to, change their thinking. And also education needs to change as well, because the educational system is still it's haven't been updated since I don't know how many decades or so. And soft skills will become super important. So meaning because, the human interaction will be much more valuable than interacting with a machine. And I think this will come. People will realize that once everybody's interacting just with machines, at the time they interact with a human, they will, click in a different way, and they will value a lot this relationship. So I think these things will naturally evolve. And one of the reasons why I do believe it's so as well is because of the diversity of the human thinking. So the fact that everybody thinks differently, that everybody's pulling in different directions, this means that the probability to converge to an equilibrium society with technology is very high. Yeah, in my opinion, right? So that's why I'm usually the guy that is not afraid on those conversations when it comes to, to talking with friends and so on.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but let's take more. Let's switch to more reflective, maybe philosophical side of basically your line of work. So, as a co-founder, was the most difficult decision you've had to make so far? Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a founder, there is always I think there are two strong decisions always that come and go. And one is hiring, right? So hiring the right people, especially when it comes to a small team. The first employees are super important because they are employees that actually are doing a little bit of everything as well as the founders.
Right.
So, and there is a really difference between the corporate mindset when it comes to an employee and a startup mindset when it comes to an employee. And then you need to be able to detect that sometimes you need, really talk to the people either with an interview or however you can do it. And the second thing is always to, also the very difficult one is to say no to business proposals just because the reward risk factor is not very good. But you are always you are missing some sort of revenue. But on the other hand, you have to kind of foresee, okay, if we would say yes, what are the consequences, right? So if it's really worthy. And this always takes some heavy decision making, difficult to make. Yeah. And so far you never know if they were right or not, but you have to live with the consequences.
Yeah, you'll never know, but you have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And regret your decision later. Now, let's aim for a long haul maybe. So in terms of the future, maybe a distant future. So basically, what legacy do you want to leave across maybe science, startups, impact-driven technology? So where do you see yourself in the future?
Let's say, I like to have an impact, right? So I'm super happy when I'm solving problems of real problems that people has. I love that a lot. So if I know at some time in the future that I have done so, I would be very happy. So meaningful solutions to real big problems. In general.
Simplicity is the key again here.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, Miller, it was so far talking to you. I think we're having a blast today. We're having a nice conversation, and only thing that's left for me, I've prepared a bonus round, sort of rapid fire questions. So I've got 5 questions prepared for you, and you got to answer real fast. So short answers, big insights, so the juicy things that are left now. So let's start with the first one. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, so I will just answer very quick and just with one word.
Basically, no overthinking, just first thing that comes into your mind, right?
Yeah.
So first, most underrated scientific concept.
Entropy.
Okay.
I think entropy is the most fun.
Totally agree. Next, favorite application of physics in real life?
I think it's in electronics, because right now all around us is based on electronics, and the electronics it's the application of quantum mechanics into it.
Yeah, I agree. And next, what's harder to navigate, DAO or a research lab?
A DAO. It's in 100%, because DAO involves people with different backgrounds. At least a research lab, everybody has the same backgrounds usually, so then the people think alike like a little bit more.
Yeah. The next one tech buzzword that you'd retire you don't like.
Disruption, perhaps. I think like not everything needs to be disrupting in order to solve a problem. Sometimes you just need to collect together many solutions that are out there and then solve the problem.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's overrated a bit, but I mean, of course, it's important, but it's overrated.
Yeah, totally. And last one, maybe interesting one, book that changed how you think.
Okay, that's a hard one, but I mean, I think like the first one that comes to my mind is probably The Alchemist from Paulo Coelho. It's like a Brazilian writer, and this is because it's really the fact that you can find a solution. Sometimes the solutions are on the path rather than on the end, right? And then that's why while trying to solve something, you should really watch out on your side, and then because maybe the solution is wherever you don't think it is. Yeah, something like that. But that's what is hard. So.
That's really profound, really deep. And yeah, basically that's a journey from like physics to protocols we were having today. We were having a blast interview with Dr. Miller Mendoza Jiménez. Guys, if you're still watching, thank you so much. If you want to connect with, Miller, whether it's about, Vifin Labs or Grundo, just feel free to look in the description. You can find all the links. Hopefully it's all in there by the time you're watching. So yeah, Miller, thank you so much for having this talk. It was really interesting. I was really excited about it, and it did not go over my expectations. So yeah, I've got what I wanted. So thank you so much, Miller.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this opportunity and to, share with me this space of time.